Welcome, everyone. If you're studying for your ICI exams, you know that spotting fraud risk is one of the trickiest parts of auditing. So today, we're going to do a masterclass on Auditing Standard 240. My goal is simple, to give you a framework that's so clear you'll feel completely confident tackling any fraud-related question. So let's start with a really interesting question. Why on earth do good people commit corporate fraud? I mean, we tend to think of fraudsters as these evil, mustache-twirling villains, right? But the truth is, it's often normal people who feel backed into a corner. And if we as auditors can understand why they do it, we can get way better at spotting the warning signs. And to understand that why, we have an incredibly powerful tool called the fraud triangle. This is the core of our session today. It's built on three key conditions that you'll almost always find when fraud happens: incentive, opportunity, and rationalization. Seriously, burn those three words into your memory. They are your secret weapon for any case study. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the two main types of fraud. Then we'll break down each one using our fraud triangle. After that, we'll talk about what your role as an auditor really is. And we'll finish up with a step-by-step exam blueprint to tie it all together. Let's get right into it. All right, section 1, first things first. Before we can spot fraud, we've got to know what we're looking for, right? Generally, fraud comes in two main flavors, and as an auditor, you absolutely have to know the difference. So here they are. On one hand, you have fraudulent financial reporting. Think of this as lying to the outside world, to investors, to the banks, to make the company look way better than it actually is. On the other hand, you've got misappropriation of assets. This one's much simpler. It's just stealing, taking cash, inventory, whatever. So one is lying to the world, the other is stealing from the house. Now for section 2. Let's tackle that first type, rigging the books. We're going to apply our awesome fraud triangle to see what an auditor should be looking for when it comes to fraudulent financial reporting. First up, let's talk incentive. I want you to think of this as the pressure cooker. What kind of intense pressure could possibly push a management team to deliberately lie on their financial statements? And that pressure can be absolutely immense. Maybe the company's profits are tanking, or maybe the CEO's gigantic bonus is tied to hitting some crazy, unrealistic target. Now, here's your big exam tip. Whenever you're reading a case study and you see phrases like pressure to meet analyst expectations or tight bank covenants, a giant red flag should go up in your mind. That is your cue for incentive. But listen, pressure alone is not enough. For a fraud to actually happen, there has to be an opportunity. We're looking for the open doors, the cracks in a company's internal controls that someone can slip through. An opportunity might be something like a super dominant CEO who nobody dares to question. But a massive red flag, especially for your exam, is significant related party transactions. It sounds fancy, but all it means is deals that aren't done at a fair market price. Like, say, the company buys a building from the CEO's brother-in-law for double what it's worth. That's a classic way to cook the books. So we have the pressure, we have the open door, but there's a final crucial piece of the puzzle: rationalization. This is the story, the little lie people tell themselves to make a completely unethical act feel okay. How do they justify it to themselves? This often just comes down to the company's culture. If there's a history of bending the rules, or if the management is constantly fighting with the auditors, that is a huge warning sign. The rationalization might even sound a bit noble, like, hey, we're just fudging the numbers this one time to get through this rough patch and save everyone's jobs. That's the internal excuse that opens the door to fraud. Okay, let's completely switch gears and move on to our second type of fraud, misappropriation of assets. We're going to use the exact same powerful framework to analyze good old-fashioned theft. Now, with this kind of fraud, the incentive is almost never about saving the company. It's almost always personal. It might be about solving a desperate financial problem, or sometimes it's just about getting revenge on the company. Just picture it. An employee who feels completely underpaid and is just drowning in personal debt. Or maybe someone who is really bitter about recent layoffs. That combination of financial pressure and feeling wronged, well, that creates a powerful incentive to steal. When we talk about opportunity here, theft usually isn't some kind of criminal masterpiece. It happens because of simple gaps in the system. The opportunity is almost always created by weak internal controls. Okay, I want you to look closely at that point about lack of mandatory vacations. This is a classic exam question, so listen up. Why is this an opportunity for fraud? Well, think about it. A lot of fraud schemes, like creating fake payments to yourself, require constant attention to cover them up. If you force that person to take a 2-week vacation, someone else has to do their job, and boom, the whole thing often falls apart. It's such a simple but brilliant control. And finally, rationalization. When it comes to just stealing from the company, the justification often comes from what we call an entitlement mindset. It's this feeling of being owed something, or maybe just wanting revenge. The employee might be telling themselves something like, you know what, I've given this company 10 years of my life. They owe me this. Or, everybody takes pens and paper home. What's the big deal if I take a laptop? See, when a company ignores all the small stuff, it creates a culture where the bigger thefts start to feel justified. So, why is this fraud triangle so unbelievably important? Is it just some academic theory? No way. It's a practical, hands-on tool that is the very foundation of your professional skepticism and your duty as an auditor. This quote right here, straight from the auditing standard, is everything. Your job is not to be a detective. It's not to be Sherlock Holmes. Fraud, by its very nature, is hidden. It's designed to be hard to find. Your real job, and where your skill really lies, is in spotting the risk factors. You are trained to see the red flags that scream that fraud could be happening. And now, for the part you've all been waiting for. Let's turn all this knowledge into actual marks on your exam paper. Let's build a crystal clear blueprint you can use to absolutely nail any case study they throw at you. I want you to use this 4-step process every single time. 1. Figure out the type of fraud. Are they lying or are they stealing? 2. Apply the triangle. What's the incentive, opportunity, and rationalization here? 3, and this is where you really get the marks, you have to link specific details from the case study to each point of the triangle. Don't just talk theory. And finally, 4, conclude. Explain why these factors increase the risk of material misstatement. Follow these steps and your answer will be perfect. So I'll leave you with a final question to think about. As a future auditor, which of these 3 pieces, incentive, opportunity, or rationalization, do you think is the hardest to actually spot in the real world? Is it the pressures, the weak controls, or is it that hidden justification inside someone's mind? Really thinking about that is what builds true professional judgment. Thanks for joining me, and good luck with your studies.